I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 1976. Since my diagnosis, my mission has been to do everything that they said diabetics cannot do. Through trial and error, highs and lows, we are still learning you can do very big things as a person with diabetes. My name is Tony Cervati, and I am Type 1 rider. Tour Divide is a mountain bike race that runs from Banff, Canada to the Mexico-New Mexico border, which is about 2,700 miles. There's about 200,000 feet of vertical, which is about the same as riding from sea level to the top of Everest about 7 times. And Tour Divide is known as the longest and hardest mountain bike race in the world. There's a very small percentage of riders that attempt this race, less than 200. And out of that number, more than 60% will not finish the event. In June of 2011, I was the first type 1 diabetic to leave Banff, Canada in an attempt to finish this race. The trail starts out and it's immediately a dirt fire road through this deep forest with these giant green trees, and right behind those tree lines are these beautiful snow-capped mountain peaks. Easily leaving Banff was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I was about 3 hours in, and I had this thought. The sun was coming down, and I had this thought of, I truly believe that that exact instant that I was going to actually make it to Mexico. You're definitely not alone out there in terms of wildlife. You don't see another soul. I didn't see a person at all after I left that morning at 6 a.m. And you start to see bear tracks right on the dirt road as you're on that fire road as you're heading out, and you see bear claw prints in the trees everywhere you turn. What I thought was going to be the best day ever turned out to be one of the most challenging I've ever had. We were coming up in altitude a little ways, and the rain had started, and it was a pretty cold rain. Every tree that you could see at head height all had bear claw scratches in the bark, and there was bear tracks literally everywhere. I saw that there was a river not too much farther up, and I thought that that'd be a good place to make my equipment change and change my basal rate and take in the carbohydrates I needed. The river was running pretty high and pretty hard due to all the rain and the snowmelt that they had had. I crossed over the bridge and was pulling some things out of the bag that I needed, my raincoat, some fast acting, my test kit to retest my blood sugar. And I looked up and looked over, and there was a grizzly bear walking up the side of this river. And I just started backing away from my bike and the bear. I took one step too far, the ground beneath my feet just slid out, and I fell down into the river below. I've never felt anything that cold. It was pure panic. I was getting pushed downriver and forced underwater and stuck in hydraulics. There was a couple times when I went under where I honestly didn't think I was coming back, and I was able to kind of crawl myself ashore and just sit on the bank of the river. Eventually made my way back to my mountain bike. I was laboring a ton to try to keep the bike moving. I started to feel that I was having some difficulty breathing, and I could feel different parts of my body starting to hurt. I got to the bottom of the mountain, and there was a little gate on the right-hand side. Although the sign said closed, as I rolled up the driveway, I actually saw a delivery truck. There was a couple people in there who turned out to own this bed and breakfast. The owner loaded me up in his station wagon, my bike and all, and drove me to the hospital in Canmore. Treated my hypothermia and a bunch of rib fractures, and generally just in a really bad way from taking a big fall and getting kind of beat up in the river. So I was just black and blue everywhere. Hard time taking deep breaths. It was really at that time that my Tour Divide attempt for 2011 was truly over. It took a long time to get over that feeling of complete and utter failure. The most important part, it wasn't about starting in Banff and getting to Mexico. It was really just about starting in Banff. And those parents of those type 1 children, they don't have an option tomorrow morning to get up and say, I'm not dealing with this. The more I thought about that, the more and more I became aware that I had to go and try this again. I had to go start this again, because that's the important piece. It'd be really easy to be like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm afraid, and I am afraid. But so are those people who are testing their blood sugars of their 6-year-old sons at 2 o'clock in the morning. I made the decision that I had to go back and try it again. It will prove that someone with type 1 diabetes can indeed do anything just by starting.